Are you doing the
Welcome back
intro?
to Never Did It. I'm Brad Garoon. I'm here with Johnny Cash, aka Jake Ziegler. On Never Did It, we look back at the last 100 years of movie history in an effort to fill in some of our own movie blind spots. And today, we're covering a great year in movie history, but not great. Well, one great movie and one not so great movie.
Yeah.
Fascinating movie, though. The year is 1975, and the films are the Eiger Sanction and the Stepford Wives. Why don't we start with the Stepford Wives? I recommended that for you. I saw it a couple years ago and thought it was great. I of course, like anyone our age, I saw the remake first in theaters and thought that was terrible.
It was.
Then I saw the original, the 1975 version, and was like, oh, I get why they remade this. This is very cool.
Mhm.
And then I saw Barbie, which owes a lot to this movie, and of course that Olivia Wilde movie, the name of which I forget
Gosh,
now.
what was that movie called? I crap so hard. Don't worry, darling.
Don't worry, darling.
Is that
Yeah,
what it was?
yeah. Don't worry, darling. Which owes a ton to this movie. So it's
Yeah.
funny that like this movie is like has a lot of highs and lows in its legacy. But it's a very cool psychological thriller about a couple that moves to a small town in Connecticut, very wealthy town in Connecticut, where all the women are perfect and all the men are not. And it stars arguably the most attractive woman to ever be born, Catherine Ross.
Heard.
Has someone emailed that to me this week. They wrote "heard" and I'm like, you just started watching The Bear. Brian Forbes directed this movie. It's really well done. Catherine Ross moves to town with her husband. She's an aspiring photographer. They have 2 kids. And she wants to know why every woman in this town is so perfect and submissive. And I don't want to say too much more about the plot. We'll get into the plot a little bit. But I don't want to say too much more about it because it is a cool movie to watch and like have it expand in front of you. And they changed some things for the remake. So if you've seen the remake, you haven't totally been spoiled. What did you think of the Stepford Wives?
Well, I don't remember the remake very well. I know I saw it probably when it came out. I mean, I was working at a video store then, so I literally saw like everything. I saw like 250 movies a year, so I barely remember the remake at all. I do kind of want to go back and watch it, even though I know it's bad, just to make the comparison because that's the kind of thing we do on this podcast. I just didn't have time to do it before we recorded, but yeah, I really liked this movie a lot. I was really impressed, like I said, with the kind of the slow rollout of it and just how it didn't feel the need to ever be like a really bombastic. There wasn't a lot of like big stuff like a lot. It was real kind of, I don't want to say slow because that has a negative connotation to it, but it really builds, to use a phrase from wrestling commentary. It was a bit of a deliberate pace, and I really appreciated that about it. I mean, it's a very 1970s movie, so if you're into that like 70s aesthetic of just like kind of real bleak, like, so we don't want to spoil too much about it, but there's not a lot of happiness by the end of this movie. And yeah, I thought it was really cool. And Catherine Ross, like I said, is fantastic. She's just really, really good. She carries the movie really well.
Yeah, it is a bit deliberate. And when you say it's not big, like the reveals are all very casual. So Joanna starts the movie with allies. She finds a group of women who are not yet Stepford wives, quote unquote. As the movie goes on, they drop out. They start becoming more submissive to their husbands. The best scene in the movie, I think, is when she gets all the women in the neighborhood together to talk about, what's so strange about this place. And all the other women just keep talking about like cleaning products and doing chores. And that reminded me so much of that opening scene in Barbie, where all the Barbies got together and Margot Robbie talks about, her existential dread, and everyone else is like, what is going on? It's like a reverse Stepford Wives. And I just thought that was so neat. And it was cool to see that's where that came from. And I don't remember, because I know that Greta Gerwig talked about her influences when Barbie was released. And I don't remember if Stepford Wives was one of them, but if it wasn't, then it's subliminal because Barbie pulls so much from this movie.
Certainly. And another movie I thought of too, just the way they're like kind of talking about cleaning products and, just different things that remind me a bit of like Truman Show too, the way like Laura Linney would, advertise, Mococo or whatever. It's like they kind of like had that kind of, and there was a good reason for that. But that was another one that I thought of for sure.
The movie also, we should say, is filled with like a who's who of this level of 70s actors. Mm-hmm. So Joanna's ally Bobby is played by Paula Prentice, who is also just in tons and tons of really cool movies that have now like sort of become lesser known unless you're a real film geek, like The Parallax View, which is another great, not my favorite actually. 3 Days of the Condor, I think, kind of blows Parallax View out of the water, but it's another paranoid thriller from the era. Catch-22, which is another one that I don't think it's so great, but a real famous movie from the time, the Alan Arkin movie. And she was also in What's New Pussycat. And then the villain, Dale, the guy who's like the head of the Men's Association, not Chris Hemsworth, not Chris, Chris Pine. The Chris Pine of this movie. And then Chris Pine's character in Don't Worry Darling is pulled 100% from this guy's character.
No question.
He's played by Patrick O'Neill, who is in one of my favorite Walter Matthau movies, The Secret Life of the American Wife, which you can't even get on DVD. It has only been released on VHS.
That's crazy.
It does stream sometimes, but it is basically a right now unfindable movie. And thank God there are so many of these like boutique Blu-ray and DVD producers now, because eventually someone will probably get to it.
Sure.
But holy crap, it's like not fine. You could probably watch it all on YouTube now, basically, because of how little distribution there is of it. Anyway, I highly recommend Secret Life of the American Wife, and he plays a similar but less dastardly character in that movie too.
Then I thought of another movie that was probably influenced by this is Pleasantville. Just kind of the vibe between, you know, like the men's group, you know, who the, you know, led by the great J.T. Walsh. I feel like we have to say that before saying him. I mean, he's so great. There's like the best character actor like ever, or one of them anyway. But yeah,
aren't you a Paul Giamatti guy?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Paul Giamatti. But I like to think of him as a leading man because like my favorite Paul Giamatti movies are, you know, where him as the lead, but those are not leading man movies.
Just a real quick question about Paul Giamatti.
Yeah.
I know you watched the new season of Black Mirror, right?
Mm-hmm. Not
Did
all
you
of
like
it, but a couple episodes, yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. Did you like the Paul Giamatti episode?
Yep, loved it. It's really, really good. It might be my favorite of all the Black Mirror episodes that I've seen.
Okay, cool. I'll check that out.
Yeah, it's very good. And we watched the sequel to the OSS, wherever the Jesse Plemons one
the space
is,
one.
which is cool. Christian Milioti should just be in everything, including my life, every day.
But you haven't watched Penguin.
Yes, I have.
Never mind.
Yeah, we watched the whole thing. We watched it before you.
I didn't know that. I think I must have known that.
We definitely talked about it, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, she's both terrifying and, like, I was both terrified and turned on by her the whole time, yeah.
Futurama gave us a word for this. You're scaroused.
I mean, I was scaroused, through the entire thing. And the other thing I was going to say about this is that even if you have, you know, like seen the original, or if you haven't seen the original, or if you've never seen any of these Stepford Wives movies, Stepford Wives has also just become such a common phrase. I feel like it's going to be hard for people to be like completely surprised, you know, by anything that they see in this movie, just because it's, you know, become part of the public lexicon.
I agree with you. Although I don't know what the kids are saying these days.
That's true. You know, I have a 12-year-old who tries to keep me up to speed. I can't remember the last time I said something where she gave me the like, nobody says that anymore, but
right.
she does her best. But, you know, I'm 42. What are you going to do?
Cool. Any other thoughts on Stepford Wives?
No, I definitely just recommend it, though. I mean, it's on Tubi, so, you know, super easy to access. And it's really cool. It's surprisingly cool. Like, I knew it was going to be better than the original, just by its reputation and everything. But I was surprised by how much I got into it, you know, even kind of knowing what was going on. So, yeah, it's very cool and obviously very influential. And, high recommendation. I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd. I think that's a good score. And, yeah, definitely high marks.
I gave it 4 stars, too. I think... we talk a lot about what we're going to do in season 2 and beyond. And I think something cool we can do, this was directed by Brian Forbes, British director who mostly did British films aside from this. We could just do like a whole British miniseries, probably made up a lot by Brian Forbes movies.
Yeah, probably.
Then you gave me the Eiger Sanction.
Let's get American here. You know, let's go to the opposite side of the pond. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, The Stepford Wives is an American movie by a British director. This is an American movie by an American director who really wanted you to know how American he was when he made this movie. It was sort of, I've read that it was sort of his answer to James Bond movies, a real American. And there's definitely James Bond vibes here.
Oh, for sure.
You hadn't seen it. You gave it to me for a very interesting reason, though.
Yes, I did. I hadn't seen any movies from 1975 that you hadn't seen. So there was a reason I had to do this. And the reason I chose it is because my parents' first movie that they ever went on a date to was the Eiger Sanction. And as the story goes, my mom fell asleep on my dad's shoulder and like big puddle of drool on him. Yeah, like on their first date too. Hey, you know, 40 something years later, married in 76. So yeah, they're almost 50 years later, you know, three kids, bunch of grandkids. So somehow it worked. And somehow they got over seeing the Eiger Sanction together, which is a really weird movie.
Yeah. So I was going to say it is a miracle that the relationship went on past the first date. That being said, your mom falling asleep makes total sense because I can't imagine a woman, even in the 70s, watching this movie and being like, wow, I'm so revved up now. I'm so ready to go.
Right. Yeah. I feel represented. You know, I feel seen by this movie. Not at all.
Yeah. So this is, if it's possible, more offensive than any James Bond movie. There, you know, we joke, or really you joke, when we do James Bond movies on this podcast, like how long does it take for there to be a sexual assault joke in the movie? Mm-hmm. And this takes it to the next level because Eastwood is directly saying, I like to rape.
Yeah, there's like 2 big rape jokes in the movie that I think are supposed to like land. I don't know, maybe audiences in the 70s were more into that. I don't know.
Pretty
but it's weird. It plays really badly now. And it's hard to, it's just hard to hear. And there's a lot of things in this movie that are just remnants of the time that are just make it really difficult.
What time? Like what a miserable time. time. It's funny because on the surface and by its name, this sounds like a spy movie. This sounds like 3 Days of the Condor. This sounds like the Parallax View. It's got the Eiger Sanction. It sounds like it's some big espionage thing, and it is not really that.
No.
For one thing, Eastwood is not a spy. He's a hitman, but he's not a hitman. He's a college professor of art, but he's not a college professor of art. He's a mountain climber.
He's a man of many talents.
He's a real Renaissance man, and I think that's probably what he was going for, being like, look how cool I am. Like anyone who directs themselves in a movie in the 70s, every woman wants him so bad. He reprimands a college student, one of his students in the beginning, for hitting on him by smacking her ass.
And telling her, he tells her, yeah, study your ass off, but then don't study the whole thing off. Oh, and that's in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
It's really early on. You should tell us what it's about.
Yeah, it's about stuff, I guess. It's a very loose sort of story. The main concern of the movie is making Clint Eastwood look cool, and he can do everything at any given time with very little resistance. There's not a lot of obstacles he has to overcome here. He just has to figure stuff out when we figure it out. But his old boss wants him to kill 2 people. He says he'll only kill 1. So once he kills the frick, it gets all convoluted. And his boss is a weird albino who has to stay alive through blood transfusions and can't be exposed to any sunlight at all, and it's super weird, and
it's completely tonally out of touch with the rest of the movie.
Absolutely, those scenes are just coming in from another planet, and there's a woman who gets involved who, obviously is going to betray him, and he gets with her anyway, and then she betrays him again, and we're just spoiling the crap out of this movie. But yeah, the plot is very, very loose, but it's about some assassinations and whether or not they happen, and whose side is who on, and who's going to ultimately betray him and when he's going to figure it out. It's one of those kind of movies, and in a way, like you said, it's not super boring. It does drag a little bit, but some of the action scenes are cool, the mountain climbing stuff is cool, so there is some good stuff in the movie, but it's so over the top and awkward in so many ways.
You touched briefly on so many things that I want to dig into, which is also why I didn't want to gloss over the Stepford Wives. I'm glad we talked about it as much as we did, but I have a lot to say about the Eiger Sanction. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. This woman, she comes on to him. It's so obvious she's a spy, and he gets mad at himself for not knowing she's a spy later, but it's you're an idiot. You're so dumb. It's the stewardess who is so hot just happens to hit on you on the airplane. I guess they set that up kind of by having the college student hit on him before, yeah. But it's why it was so obvious. And then her being black is such an important part of her characterization. It's so racist, and it's so racist in the effort of making Eastwood look so not racist, right? That's the whole point. He's oh, I'm really into miscegenation, but all the ways he describes her are so racist.
Yeah, a lot. It's super weird.
But he's supposed to be so cool because he has a black girlfriend. It's really wild the way it's framed. And then you've got the whole third act is a mountain climb. The movie shifts and becomes about mountain climbing.
I thought it was going to be more about mountain climbing, honestly. I was a little surprised that didn't really play in until, like you said, the last, third or so.
Yeah. And that's gorgeous. The cinematography there is amazing. It's all shot on location, and Eastwood climbed for real, which is pretty wild.
How did they do it? They just did it.
Yeah, he just did it. Well, he didn't have to, but he definitely did.
Yeah.
And one of the climber consultants on this movie died during the filming of the movie.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And even the stuff in the United States, out west, that climbing, that stuff is very cool and very beautiful. And in that section of the movie, we got a lot of George Kennedy, which I'm always happy to see him. He is maybe my favorite character actor of all time. I'm obsessed with George Kennedy. And he's very good in the movie, actually. Mm-hmm. And then you have the opposite, the Miles Mello character, which is the most gay panicky character you will ever see in a movie. His dog's name is the F slur. Wow, he says it a lot.
A lot too, yeah.
Yeah, he says it a lot. Mm-hmm. It's funny in a shocking way the first time, and then it started making me feel kind of sick.
Yeah.
So all this stuff is just bubbling around. And then you know the biggest thing that you mentioned that I want to touch on is that Eastwood never has any resistance, and then he solves the movie by accident. After failing the mountain climb. The whole premise of the third act is that he has failed to climb this mountain twice, the Eiger. He's failed to climb the Eiger twice. And the sanction is their word for a murder, for a hit, just so they could, copyright trademark a name of a movie.
Yeah.
So the whole thing's he's failed it twice. He's going to conquer it this time, and one of the other climbers on the expedition is this assassin he's after.
Yeah.
And then it turns out, like you said, we're spoiling this.
Yeah.
None of them are. They're all just kind of dickheads. They're not assassins. George Kennedy is the person he's actually after. but he's not a bad guy. And then all the climbers die anyway. The climb fails. Eastwood decides not to kill his target. And then there's what I hated about the ending. Was that both the lackey of the albino guy and the woman, the female lead, suggest that Eastwood may have sanctioned all three of the climbers himself, and we would never know, except we were up there with him, so we know he didn't.
Yeah.
The music and Eastwood's demeanor make it seem like we're not supposed to know for sure, but we do know for sure.
Because we saw it, because we were there.
Because we were there. Anyway, I gave it 3 stars because it looked amazing.
Yeah, and I did too. I gave it 3 stars, for the look and like the cinematography, and just like I said, it's such a fascinating piece of uncomfortable 70s cinema. Like some of the stuff we watched from the 70s is just, like really holds up and doesn't have a lot of this awkward ickiness to it, but this one had so much of it. So it was kind of fascinating in a uncomfortable way.
It actually is a great pairing with the Stepford Wives because you have something satirizing the misogyny that was rampant in the Eiger Sanction. And It seems like Eastwood does not want to engage with it actually at all. Or the times he thinks he's engaging with it, like with the female lead, he's making an ass of himself.
He really is. And it's interesting, too, because if you look at some of the later movies that Eastwood did, made some great movies with female leads who, were great characters. Of course, you've got The $1 Million Baby, with Hilary Swank. And, even movies like Unforgiven were more sympathetic to female characters. So I definitely think he softened maybe as he got older, or maybe this was, I don't know, a phase he was going through or something, where, like you said, he wanted to be James Bond. And I think that's very apparent. And there's definitely influence there. And also, hey, maybe was their influence on Indiana Jones? Like there's a professor, going out and doing dangerous stuff. And so, there's a parallel there too. So definitely a lot of interesting things in this movie. But if I'm looking at Eastwood's full filmography, it's not going to rank very high.
No. So I just want to make a few notes about the cast. Vanetta McGee plays Jemima Brown. Now, I will cut him a little bit of a break because at least he had the good sense to lampshade us a bit. They make fun of the name in the movie. Yep. Like they talk about the name being absurd.
And she goes by Jem. So like that.
Right.
They make it work.
Right. I think to their credit, I think that is a joke about James Bond girls. You've got these girls with these absurd names, and he's calling it out.
Yeah.
Jack Cassidy played Miles Mello. I point this out because this is the father of David Cassidy from the Partridge Family.
Oh.
Are you surprised that this man had a child? I am.
Yes.
Rumors abounded that he was gay and his marriage was a sham, and I think his son David agreed with that. None of the climbers are actually all that interesting, but the other big character in the movie is Gregory Walcott, who played Pope, the lackey of Dragon, the albino.
I think they call him Dragon.
Yeah, and why not? He's such an absurd alien character anyway. But Gregory Walcott, who played Pope, is famous for being in Plan 9 from Outer Space. So good for Gregory Walcott for getting out of B movies and into weird A movies.
Yeah. I think one person you're missing from the cast is Brenda Venus, who trains Clint Eastwood for the try. And he's talking about, gorgeous woman. I just pulled up her filmography. Was in a couple other things. She ended up, the biggest thing she was in after this was 48 Hours, which I think that's a never did it for me. But she's also in Foxy Brown, would have been the other kind of big thing she was in. And then she was only in a handful of other things. So she didn't do very many movies, but she definitely has kind of an important part here. But again, she's also basically treated like an object.
Yeah, so she's a indigenous woman who has an amazing body that is very exposed in this movie. And I think got a lot of young men in the 70s through puberty.
Yeah.
But her character is absurd. Like she's the exotic native who runs through the wilderness and trains Eastwood even though he can't touch her. And when she finally gives in to him, of course she betrays him because every woman is duplicitous.
That's right.
Actually, every woman in this movie is duplicitous because the only other woman in the movie, there's the college girl who, and your call about Indiana Jones is 100% right. It's like the exact same scene.
Except Harrison Ford doesn't get creepy about it. He doesn't he doesn't slap anyone on the ass and say gross things to them.
No, but the scene in the classroom, like the girl writing "I love you" on her eyelids, like that's from this. The other woman is one of the climbers' wives who is having an affair with a different climber and hits on all women are awful in this movie.
It's brutal.
No Oscar love for either of these movies, right?
None. Nope.
Well, then why don't we rank our favorite movies of 1975?
Let's do it. Do you want to go first or should I?
I'm happy to go first. So 1975, like I said, an amazing year with some of my favorite movies of all. Like 3 of my favorite movies of all time were this year.
Great year.
A couple honorable mentions. David Green version of The Count of Monte Cristo, which starred Richard Chamberlain, who was famous for doing these TV versions of famous things. Like he was Shogun before Cosmo Jarvis was Shogun. I thought this was pretty good in terms of Count of Monte Cristos. I watched it because the new French version of Count of Monte Cristo came out and is incredible. This one's pretty good. It stars Donald Pleasance and Tony Curtis as the villains. So that's fun. I should shout out the Pinchcliffe Grand Prix, which is a cool but not great stop motion animated movie from Norway. That was really hard to find, but I really wanted to watch it. And then I'll just mention a couple other movies that came out this year that I like but don't love. Robert Altman's Nashville, the Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and I'm sure this will wind up on your list, but Antonioni's The Passenger all came out this year, which I liked, and the Eiger Sanction's okay. And then number 10, I have The Sunshine Boys, which was directed by Herbert Ross, who was one of the great collaborators with Walter Matthau, and it stars Matthau and George Burns as two Altacockers who want to get back in the game and do a TV special. There is blackface in this movie, so watch out for that, but it's a very funny movie, and it was George Burns' big return to movies after like 30 years of not doing them. And then he lived to be 100 years old. So people thought that like he would come back at 80 and that would be it. But he lived another 20 years and made a bunch of movies, including the Oh God trilogy. My number 9 is Stanley Kubrick's Milos Forman's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I don't know why I always think Kubrick made this, but he very much didn't. Great movie starring Jack Nicholson and Danny DeVito and Christopher Lloyd, and has one of the best villains of all time in Fletcher's Nurse Ratched. So yeah, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. All-time great movie about an insane asylum. Mm-hmm. My number 8 is now Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon. If you're any kind of a movie fan, you've heard of this movie as having the best cinematography of any movie ever. And the argument can be made. Every shot does look like a painting. Ryan O'Neal's incredible as the eponymous Barry Lyndon. And it's, like a revolutionary era story of crappy drunk guy.
And to all the lighting, too, to add to the cinematography, all the lighting, like all the candlelit scenes was really just candlelight. They didn't mess around with that at all. So it's a really, really cool movie.
Amazing. My number 7 is The Stepford Wives, which we talked about at great length, but good work, Brian Forbes. I want to watch a lot more Catherine Ross movies now. She's just so pretty. Number 6 is Norman Jewison's Rollerball. I really like Rollerball. I watched this when Scott Caan's dad died because, I said Shiva for Scott Caan. This movie's dope. I've heard some people try to reclaim the remake, maybe just because Paul Heyman's in it. The original is really good. There is a lot of action. The rollerball action scenes are cool, but it's the behind the scenes corporations are disgusting and there's nothing you can do about it vibe. That's like you were talking about earlier with Stepford Wives. It's real bleak, really worth watching, and was hard to find for a while, but now it's on Tubi. So peep that. My number 5 is Steven Spielberg's Jaws. I don't think I need to say that much about Jaws. Y'all know Jaws. It's the first blockbuster success, and it's incredible. I remember when I was first getting into going to repertory screenings, I went to the IFC theater and I watched Jaws, and I paid $15 for my ticket. And I remember thinking, I'm the only person who's ever paid this much money to see Jaws in the theater. And now I know that repertory screenings are like very common, but at the time I was like, why did I do this? And then I saw, it was my first time seeing the movie. It was incredible. My number 4 is Lino Wertmüller's Seven Beauties. This is interesting. It's a Holocaust film that's not about Jews. It's about Italians getting wrapped up in the Holocaust. It is tough, like any Holocaust film would be, but I really wanted to watch more Wertmüller movies, and I think her Swept Away just came out on 4K. So if you ever want to get into her movie, she's an incredible director and very, very prolific. You and I had started a conversation about who are the most prolific female directors, and that was how I came upon her. Anyway, this movie is great. It's a real tough hang. It stars Giancarlo Giannini, who is he's in the new James Bond movies. He's like one of Bond's allies. He's much older, but this is from 75. And he goes through it. My number 3 is Sidney Pollack's 3 Days of the Condor. If not the best spy movie ever, it's in the top 3. I just rewatched Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and was blown away by it all over again. And also Black Bag came out this year, which was incredible. But this is up there. And it stars Robert Redford and Faye Dunaway, and they're just knocking it out of the park. Max von Sydow is, as you would guess, in a spy movie, perfect. My number 2 is Woody Allen's Love and Death. This is, I think, one of the, if not the most underseen Woody Allen movie that is good. This or maybe Stardust Memories. But this is a real funny spoof of like War and Peace, and it all takes place in that era of Russia. Woody Allen and Diane Keaton are miserable and just trudging through the short and brutal life of a Russian in that era. It's really, really funny. And Harold Gould is also in it, and he's always so funny. And then my number one is Sidney Lumet's Dog Day Afternoon, the story of Al Pacino and John Cazale trying to earn money so that Al Pacino's boyfriend can have a surgery by robbing a bank. And it is, like I said, about 3 Days of the Condor being one of the best spy movies. This is one of the best heist movies, period. Bank robbery movies, period. Have you seen Dog Day Afternoon?
Here's a weird thing about this movie is that, and we talked about this, I don't know if you remember having this conversation, but I have it marked on Letterboxd at 5 stars. I don't remember having seen it. Like, I really don't. And if I marked it with a rating, I would have had to have seen it like during the Letterboxd era, right? It's very strange that I would have done that and really not remember seeing it.
At this point, Sidney Lumet is responsible for so many of the most important movies to me that you should just watch it again. It's so good, and it's really, really watchable too.
Yeah, and I wouldn't need to, because it looks like what I did is I marked it as watched and just gave it 5 stars. So like I probably saw it in like high school or college or something, and then just remembered it as a 5-star movie, which, you know, from the way you're describing it, sounds accurate. So yeah, I must have seen it back then, but yeah, it feels like I haven't. So time for a rewatch on that one. That's been on my list for a little bit to go back to.
I mean, I also have it at 5 stars, obviously. Hit us with your films.
I have Dog Day Afternoon kind of as an honorable mention, even though I have a 5-star rating for it on Letterboxd, just because I don't feel right about rating it against some of the other movies I gave 5 stars to until I see it again. So right now, that's an honorable mention. I only have 8 movies from 75, so I'm going to call that an honorable mention. And then if I were ranking the other 7, I would have the Eiger Sanction at number 7. And then 6 would be Stepford Wives, which again, I really, really enjoyed. It feels low, but like I said, 75 was a great year. I have Nashville at number 5. I like this movie more than you do, and it's a very very popular, influential Altman movie. Amongst the movies he's made, it gets mentioned probably more than any of his other movies. Would you think?
By today's standards, maybe The Player.
Yeah,
which we covered on the show. But no, you're probably right. Much more so than The Long Kiss Goodnight. More so than Gosford Park for sure.
Yeah,
if I may,
you may.
If you want a movie that has the Altman Nashville vibe, huge cast, lots of overlapping talking, giving you a feeling for the setting much more so than for character, I recommend Tanner 88, which is a series he did on HBO about the 1988 presidential primary, Democratic primary. It's very cool. And politics is, I think, just a little bit more on our minds now than country music. So
yeah. Fair. Yeah. And that will bring us into the top 4. At number 4, I have Barry Lyndon, like I said, which you spoke about at great length. Beautiful, gorgeous movie. It is a bit slow moving, so it's not for everyone, but for anyone who likes Kubrick or who has the patience for like Terrence Malick stuff, this would be certainly right up your alley.
It's so funny because a lot of people now, their knowledge of this movie is because a rap montage of the movie came out that's amazing and like made the rounds on all the social media.
Oh.
And what's great, for one thing, it makes it look like the best movie of all time, and for another, it got a lot of people to watch it, which is just very cool.
That is cool. I didn't know that happened. I'm very out of the loop, I guess.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you. And that would make number 3 movie you mentioned before, Antonioni's The Passenger. I haven't seen this movie in a long time, but I was like obsessed with it when I first saw it, and I saw it multiple times around that, and I really loved the movie again. It's definitely not for everybody, present company included, but I really remember enjoying it.
Yeah, I just don't like Antonioni, it turns out.
Turns out, yeah. And I really didn't like blow up when we rewatched it. I didn't have a lot of patience for that. So now I'm like scared to go back and rewatch The Passenger. But the one thing that The Passenger has that blow up didn't have, it's got Jack Nicholson doing Jack Nicholson things. And, Jack...
He's not doing that many Jack Nicholson things. That's the thing. He's like very understated. He
is very understated. But I remember liking that about the movie, that it's much different from his other movie of 1975 that's still, more popular, more famous, which is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, obviously. And that's my number 2. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, one of 3 movies to win the Big 5 Oscar awards. It won for picture, director, actor, actress, and adapted screenplay. It just obviously can only win one of the screenplays, so that's why it's the Big 5. But yeah, Nurse Ratched is terrifying. Louise Fletcher's great. Nicholson's great. Yeah, the supporting cast is amazing. And it's also funny is that this was the first movie Michael Douglas won an Oscar for, because he was one of the producers of the film. So can't not mention Michael Douglas on this show.
For sure. And he at that time, his career was going to be as a producer.
That's right.
And then he just like couldn't not. And he and Danny DeVito became good friends around that time, and they still are very good friends to this day, which I love. I love any story about 2 friends. So that's very cool.
I love it. And then my number one should be obvious by now is Jaws. Yeah, I've seen it so many times. It's a perfect movie. Still one of the best that it does. And when I resurrect my daughter, she's going to go to film school this summer. Jaws will definitely be a movie that I make her watch. Yeah, Jaws is definitely going to be on that because she's almost 13 now, so I think she'll be able to watch Jaws and enjoy it. I hope.
Yeah, it's great. It's so watchable and
it
good.
really is. I mean, it takes a while for Jaws to show up. Everybody knows that, but it's not like it's boring before that happens either. I mean, the character, Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, it really put Spielberg on the map, and he's been there ever since.
That'll do it for 1975. We'll be back in 1 week, but also in 30 years to talk about the movies of 2005.